Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartia, and welcome to a special edition of TFR Newsroom for the Cloud Foundry Summit. And today we have with us Chip Childers, Executive Director of Cloud Foundry Foundation. How has been the conference so far?
The conference great. So we just wrapped up. It was a lot of fun. It's certainly very different being virtual, and we had a lot of people commenting about how they, of course, would have preferred to see each other in person. We had planned on being in Dublin, Ireland, but we did what we could to make it as collaborative as possible. The other benefit, though, of doing it virtually, quite frankly, is that we have the possibility to bring people who otherwise couldn't travel right to the event, and they have just as equal access as everyone that has the ability to travel. So it went very well, and I'd say the fun of going to Dublin, we did our best to bring it to the people that showed up, and even took them out to a farm in Ireland to go meet some alpacas during one of the breaks. So it was a good time.
Awesome. Let's talk about some of the highlights or some of the major announcements there are a lot of announcements, but something that you felt that, hey, these are something you want to talk about.
Sure. So I'll basically say the main theme of the event is that the Cloud Foundry community has essentially reinvented the technology that it's been working on for a very long time. Cloud Foundry is now, without a doubt, a developer experience for Kubernetes. Now, our community offers different paths to it. There's the path that helps you kind of bridge from the feature set that let's say the classic virtual machine-based architecture provided, but there's also a fresh reinvention of the architecture from the bottom up that is designed to help you get started with Cloud Foundry and layer it on top of a Kubernetes cluster in less than 10 minutes. So that's really what this event was all about. It was a culmination of all of the energy of our community over the last several months. So when we spoke, I took over this role in April, and at the time I said, look, our community has a new North Star, and it's one that we had been converging towards for quite some time. But it was clear that at the beginning of this year, there was a single mission that every company involved, every contributor involved was very focused on, and that was making this transition to a Kubernetes-based architecture. So you fast forward to October, and we've had a number of really significant project announcements that are directly tied to that theme, directly tied to that goal that the community had.
Did you make any announcements at the summit?
Yeah, we made some great announcements at Summit. So there were three major announcements that were made. The first was that the CF for K8s project, which is a project designed to go from Kube to CF in less than 10 minutes, released its 1.0 version. That's a major milestone for that whole project team and the community, the larger Cloud Foundry community. Second, the Kube CF project, which is a little bit of has a slightly longer history behind it. It's a way to deploy the VM-based architecture Cloud Foundry packaged and layered on top of Kubernetes. It reached its 2.5 release. Very important production readiness features are in there. And third, the Stratus UI, which is the web-based UI that traditionally has been about managing multiple, one or more Cloud Foundry environments. SUSE upstreamed plugins that mean that the upstream project now has support natively for managing Cloud Foundry endpoints, Kubernetes endpoints, and Helm repository or Helm chart repository endpoints. And so you can kind of bring all these things together into a web interface and take advantage of the unified architecture.
Right, because the basic idea is in the center is the user. Technologies are secondary. How a particular community is helping those users wherever they are in their journey, that is what matters. So, when I talk to, no matter who I talk to, everybody had some Kubernetes stories. Now, KubeCon is also coming in. It's next month. So, how much of Cloud Foundry we'll see there? Because I talked to SUSE and other companies, and they are going to talk about Cloud Foundry there because these two technologies are coming closer together. If you look at VMware, so talk about what is your plan for KubeCon? Of course, we are in Cloud Foundry Summit, but still.
Yeah, no, it's totally fair. I mean, our community is made up of both people as well as companies, and that those companies, the vendors, they have commercial products that are based on Cloud Foundry. So, the CF technology is going to be there, absolutely, but it's going to be there in the form of the products and services and the portfolios of these companies that they're starting with Kubernetes as kind of the basics, the basis of building a suite of offerings. It's the new infrastructure, right? It's the modern take on infrastructure. And whether you're talking about SUSE with their cloud application platform built on top of their Kubernetes offering, and frankly, we'll see with SUSE, what the opportunities of their pending Rancher acquisition, bring in terms of where Cloud Foundry can actually land, right? Something I think is particularly interesting, not just in the context of SUSE, but in the context overall, is that smaller instances of Kubernetes are starting to show up in the edge, right? So it's not just about big, cloud environments, but it's also about this modern API-driven infrastructure that's container-centric, showing up on edge computing locations. And with the significantly shrunk footprint of what's required to get the Cloud Foundry controller up and running on a kube cluster, I absolutely imagine that the development velocity that Cloud Foundry has brought to cloud environments can start being applied to edge compute environments. So I think that's going to be really interesting. Secondarily, or second, beyond SUSE, of course, we have, IBM's a commercializer of Cloud Foundry on top of Kubernetes, and they have been for quite some time. So when you look at the IBM offerings, again, they have a suite of options. Cloud Foundry solves a specific purpose within that suite. The same goes for VMware with the Tanzu portfolio. You see the same thing with SAP, who's very business application focused with the SAP Cloud Platform. All of their stories revolve around building from infrastructure up to solving developer problems. And that's where CF fits right in.
Right. I fully agree. Now, we are also at the end of this long decade or year, whatever you want to call it. It's not an year for sure, 2020. So as we move towards the end of 2020, what kind of trend, of course, too early, and also the way market is volatile, what kind of trends that you see will go into 2021 when it comes to both Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes? You did allude to that, how companies are leveraging both, but can you just summarize it? How do you see these technologies move forward?
Yeah, I think that's great. So number one, Kubernetes is going to continue to do that community is going to do what it's doing, right? It's maturing, it's hardening the platform. It's things like the K3S distribution of it, which is now a CNCF project, which is great. They're demonstrating that there's different ways to configure and deploy Kubernetes. That's not going to stop. And so, Kube's going through that maturation stage, right? Where it's less about slamming as many features in as possible. It's more about making sure that it's stable in a lot of contexts, it's secure, et cetera. The shift of Cloud Foundry to being a dev experience on top of Kubernetes, I think, is reflective of a larger trend in the industry. And that larger trend is that organizations, developers, anybody that's starting with Kube but trying to solve a developer problem is realizing that it's only solving part of the problem, because Kube itself is about container-centric infrastructure configuration. And so you see a lot of different offerings now layering on top of Kubernetes, whether these are cloud providers who are offering it, or whether it's open source projects or commercial software products. Everyone's trying to layer developer experiences on top. CF has a dev experience that hundreds of thousands of developers really know, they love, and it's got demonstrated success time and time again. And now that it just can land on a kube cluster, give you the value of the modern infrastructure as well as the optimized dev experience, it's pretty amazing. There was we gave a community awards out at our event, and one of those awards we gave out was to the most interesting user story, and we awarded that to the UK's government digital service. And they have an amazing story where in response to the global pandemic. Once the UK government decided that they needed to begin to provide economic relief, over a weekend, the team that was using Cloud Foundry as its deployment environment and a number of other great open source projects that help facilitate time to deployment, they were able to go over a weekend from nothing to an app to get to register citizens to get their economic relief. Really amazing story. So the whole industry's kind of refocusing on what we've been focused on for a long time. I'm excited about that trend. And so that's really where I think that most of the innovation cycle is going to start happening now, as we transition to next year.
Perfect. Chip, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule and talk to us today about the summit. And I look forward to talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Spot.